has been declassified and released is irrefutable. I'm going to let Karoline speak to Secretary Rubio.
I'll speak to both questions. First, on Secretary Rubio, he put out a statement in 2020 following that Senate Intelligence Committee report, and he said what they found is troubling. We found irrefutable evidence of Russian meddling, which the Director of National Intelligence just confirmed for all of you, that Russia was trying to sow distrust and chaos. But what's the outrage in this that Secretary Rubio did not say at the time, the Democrats were saying at the time, is the fact that the intelligence community was concocting this narrative that the president colluded with the Russians, that the president's son was holding secret meetings with the Russians, all of these lies that were never true.
The clash between Karoline Leavitt and Kaitlan Collins has officially erupted again, and this round, Karoline came out swinging. In one of the sharpest press briefing smackdowns in recent memory, Leavitt dismantled Kaitlan's line of questioning with surgical precision. Collins looks determined to throw wrenches into Trump's messaging, but Karoline's not letting a single jab go unanswered. She's dialed in, on offense, and shutting down the drama point by point. And lucky for you, I've got every scorched moment ready. Buckle in, this is about to get intense.
Director Gabbard, you referenced the past intelligence reports and assessments on this, including that 2017 one that was signed off, as Ed noted, by every Republican on the Senate Intelligence Community, including the acting chair of the time, now Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who said in a statement that they did not find any evidence of Russian collusion, but they did find, however, is very troubling, and they found irrefutable evidence of Russian meddling. One, are you saying that he's wrong in that statement that he made then? And secondly, what would you say to people who believe that you're only releasing these documents now to improve your standing with the president after he said that your intelligence assessment?
Kaitlan lobbed the first grenade, questioning Tulsi Gabbard's credibility for exposing damning evidence tied to none other than Barack Obama. If that sounds suspicious, it's because it is. Obama's name is under fire again, and Kaitlan's scrambling to do PR triage. Her strategy? Go after the messenger. But Tulsi wasn't about to take that lying down. She flipped the whole thing like a pro, burning the narrative and the man behind it. It was calculated, cold, and devastating. Classic Tulsi.
To correct something that you stated, which was citing the Senate Intelligence Committee's report as being one and the same. I think you said the intelligence community. The Senate Intelligence Committee has a very different function than the Office of the Director of National Intelligence.
Kaitlan brought a butter knife to a battlefield, and Tulsi Gabbard came swinging with a broadsword. The result? Total carnage. Tulsi didn't just call her out, she exposed a fundamental blunder. Kaitlan confused the Senate Intelligence Committee with the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. That's journalism 101, and she flunked in front of millions. It wasn't just awkward, it was a career-level facepalm. You could practically hear the air leave the room. And just when you thought it couldn't get worse, Tulsi handed Kaitlan over to Karoline Leavitt for the final blow. Trust me, it's a roast for the history books.
That has been declassified and released is irrefutable. I'm going to let Karoline speak to Secretary Rubio.
I'll speak to both questions. First, on Secretary Rubio, he put out a statement in 2020 following that Senate Intelligence Committee report, and he said what they found is troubling. We found irrefutable evidence of Russian meddling, which the Director of National Intelligence just confirmed for all of you, that Russia was trying to sow distrust and chaos. But what's the outrage in this that Secretary Rubio did not say at the time, the Democrats were saying at the time, is the fact that the intelligence community was concocting this narrative that the president colluded with the Russians, that the president's son was holding secret meetings with the Russians, all of these lies that were never true.
Another ruthless mic drop from Karoline Leavitt, and this time, she had Kaitlan Collins squarely in her crosshairs. Kaitlan tried to twist Marco Rubio's statement into a narrative it never supported, claiming he confirmed Russian interference tied directly to Trump. But here's the reality check, Rubio never said anything about Trump-Russia collusion. That was a fiction straight from the Democratic strategy playbook, served hot by their loyal media allies. Karoline wasn't about to let that lie breathe. She came armed with quotes, facts, and brutal clarity, and what followed was a live demolition of yet another media fantasy. Leavitt isn't reacting anymore, she's controlling the tempo, exposing the spin, and turning every falsehood into a public reckoning. And believe me, she's only getting started.
Said at that time, we discovered deeply troubling actions taken by the FBI under Comey, particularly their acceptance and willingness to rely on the Steele dossier without verifying its methodology or sourcing. The Steele dossier that many outlets in this room ran as the gospel truth, and it was cooked up and paid for by the Clinton campaign.
Now that is fearless. Karoline Leavitt walked into that press room and lit up every outlet that once paraded the Steele dossier like it was sacred scripture. No fact-checking, no accountability, just unhinged, breathless coverage night after night. I remember it too. The dossier dominated every channel, every monologue, every political panel. It was treated like gospel, fueling wild Trump-Russia theories like a binge-worthy Netflix drama. But when the truth came out, that it was mostly rumor, hearsay, and politically motivated nonsense, the media went silent. Or worse, pretended. It never happened. Karoline didn't let that slide. She brought the receipts, the history, and the fire. Embarrassing? Oh, absolutely. Unforgettable? Even more so.
Second question, Kaitlan, I think, who is saying that she would release this to try to boost her standing with the president? Who has said that?
Well, the president has publicly undermined her when it came to Iran. He said she was wrong. He told me that she didn't know what she was talking about. That was on Air Force One on camera.
The only people who are suggesting that the Director of National Intelligence would release evidence to try to boost her standing with the president are the people in this room who constantly try to sow distrust and chaos amongst the president's cabinet, and it is not working.
Another clean hit from Karoline Leavitt, and at this point, she's rewriting the rulebook on how to handle the press. CNN's Kaitlan Collins tried to stir up scandal, suggesting that Tulsi Gabbard only exposed Barack Obama to cozy up to Trump. But Karoline wasn't buying the bait. She shut it down instantly, making it clear that Tulsi never implied any such motive, not in words, tone, or intention. Karoline called it for what it was, a cheap smear campaign manufactured to sow division within Trump's circle. And as the truth unraveled in real time, Kaitlan's composure started to crack. She fumbled, flailed, and visibly folded under pressure as Karoline calmly dismantled her setup, live on camera. What followed was one of the most charged moments to ever hit the press room floor.
Answer your question directly. I am with the President of the United States every day. He has the utmost confidence in Director Gabbard. He always has. He continues to. And that is true of his entire cabinet, who is all working as one team to deliver on the promises
This was the knockout punch. Karoline Leavitt didn't just counter Kaitlan Collins, she finished her. With surgical precision, Karoline exposed exactly how far the left is willing to go to take down Trump: lies, edits, and total narrative manipulation. The flashpoint? A cherry-picked, 18-second clip of Tulsi Gabbard speaking on Iran, stripped of context, then waved in front of Trump to provoke a reaction. Trump simply stated the obvious, that the clip was misleading. No attack. No betrayal. But that didn't stop the media machine. They ran with headlines claiming Trump disavowed Gabbard. Karoline wasn't about to let that lie breathe. She tore the fabrication apart, calling out the coordinated media spin and leaving Kaitlan with nowhere to hide. No counter, no comeback, just silence.
Out that the documents revealed that the Obama administration did not publish a December 2016 presidential daily briefing that demonstrated that Russia did not steal the election. Trump was receiving these briefings at the time because he was president-elect. Are you of the view that that information was kept out of the briefing because then President-elect Donald Trump would have seen it?
I don't have any documents that speak to exactly what the new guidance was that was given as the reason for pulling that document, which, by the way, still has never been published until we released it last week, Friday. One could assume that they didn't want President Trump to see a document that came from the intelligence community that would contradict the Russia hoax narrative that began through the Hillary Clinton campaign with the Steele dossier.
The Democrats love to preach integrity, but the receipts tell a different story. While they accused Trump of subversion, they themselves were quietly orchestrating one of the biggest political deceptions in modern history. They knew the Russian collusion angle was hollow. The intelligence was there. The briefings were clear. And still, Obama and Biden chose silence, letting the Steele dossier take center stage in a media circus built on fiction. Instead of stopping the misinformation, they weaponized it. And now that the truth is cracking through the facade, Karoline Leavitt is pulling off the mask. This isn't about protecting democracy. It's about controlling the story. And for once, that story's crumbling. The American people were fed drama. Karoline's serving facts.
Said yesterday that Obama committed treason. Do you or the White House believe that the Supreme Court's immunity decision protects Obama from prosecution?
Look, I can speak to the president's feelings on this matter. He spoke to all of you yesterday in the Oval Office, but I also spoke to him about this morning. And he wants to see all those who perpetuated this fraud against our country, who betrayed our country and the Constitution, to be thoroughly investigated and held accountable. And it's been 10 years of this. And I would just add, based on everything the director has said and declassified, all of you in this room should go through it and take a look at this report and review the intelligence, because unfortunately that hasn't happened. And many of the people who perpetuated this hoax, Clapper, Andy McCabe, James Comey, and many others, have been hired by major networks in this room to go on television and continue to spew these lies, knowing that they are lies.
Let's be clear, anyone who had a hand in dragging this country through the fabricated mess of the Russian collusion hoax deserves to face consequences. Legal, political, moral, however that reckoning plays out, one thing is certain: the deception was real, and it ran deep. Could Barack Obama himself face prosecution? That's a question for the courts, maybe even the Supreme Court. But the role of his enablers? That's already out in the open. Karoline Leavitt called them out by name: the insiders who weaponized agencies, pushed lies they knew were false, and used their power to sabotage a sitting president. This wasn't political strategy. It was calculated abuse of the system. And if we let that go unanswered, we're inviting it to happen again. The American people aren't asking for revenge. We're demanding justice. Because what happened wasn't business as usual. It was a pseudo-takedown of democracy itself.